Different people react differently. Different musicians feel differently about live performing, and I just happen to feel that it's a vital part. And when I'm not touring, I always try to play somewhere a little bit here and there, or get something to do that keeps me in touch with playing live. I think after a while you can make large venues intimate. It's a mixture. Your gestures are bigger, and there are certain things that you do to include everybody. I've always loved playing in round places, and I always loved playing in the old amphitheaters. It's almost like being in a film. When you drive up to the place, it has a theatrical quality to it that you can't escape from. I used to feel more pressure with performing on big things than I have done for the past few years. Pressure is something that you get used to. It's just time spent in the driving seat, I think. That the more time that you spend doing it, the more time you have to take in what's going on around you, what everybody's playing, what everybody's doing, what's happening in the arena itself. I was determined on this tour that we weren't going to sound check because of the exhaustion that we suffered on other tours. Calling Elvis was a good way of getting started because we just all got greased in. The crew could sound check most of the stuff, and then our poor sound guy would try to get everything sorted out during the first song. You need to be self-contained, and you need to be quite solid to be able to just put up with that day after day after day. There are a lot of highs involved with the playing and everything else, and the experience of seeing a massive crowd absolutely all swaying about and armed and everything going. And it's dramatic and it's exciting and it's wonderful and everything else, but there are lots of troughs where you are tired, people are hurt, they're injured, they're food poisoned, they've got problems at home, they've got this, that and the other, and so a special frame of mind is really required. Once you've got the right crew of people together and it starts to feel right, you can relax. Part of being professional is finding stuff in the work that keeps you interested in it over a period of time. And I'm sure if you were touring a play, you'd try to do the same thing. What's important is not overplaying. When I listen to the stuff from the early 80s, after we'd been touring it for a while, it's like hearing something being kicked down a fire escape. Everybody's found a gap and filled it. Lots of toms everywhere and guitar licks, and you find out, and keyboard arpeggios and things. And one of the things about getting a more experienced band together is that people are more conscious of arrangements, and people, especially when it's a big band, you've got to be very careful with the space. It would be very easy to fill it just chock-a-block with stuff, and keeping the space that you can get in a little four-piece, keeping the same sense of space is quite tricky. there are cycles that in music that begin, I suppose, with the writing, and then you rehearse either for a demo or a record. You record, and you tour, and then so in order to tour, you rehearse for a tour. In a lot of ways, I prefer rehearsal to anything else, because you've got an unknown, and you can change everything. You can change parts of songs, beginnings, middles, ends. It's just if you get over most of the stuff beforehand, most of the tricky stuff beforehand, then it helps you cruise through the rest. But what we wanted to do was to be able to swan in and play and swan off again. Only taking calls for cash. Don't know how it happened. It all took place so fast. All I can do is hand it to you and your latest trick. But the more you have a band who think like arrangers, the easier that whole thing is. There are musicians and there are musical musicians, and musical musicians are in fact quite rare. In my relationship with the instrument and with music just gets deeper all the time. Obviously you're not going to do the same song the same way as you would when you were 20. It's just different. I've never thought that age had much to do with that. If your thing involved leaping about and jumping around, then I would think there'd have to come a time when you couldn't do that, you know. But mine doesn't anyway. Gotta be a reckoning. You gotta become some lawyer. Low down and draw up your face. Going to the sacred end. Never used to be able to write on the road, but I started doing just a little bit. Somewhere your fingerprints remain concrete, and it's your face I'm a looking for. Ideally, for me to write, I need a sofa like this and an acoustic guitar, and that's really all. It has to be a sofa, really, so that I can fall asleep. It's pathetic, really, because I've never been able to work properly with tape recorders or write in a professional manner. It's always been some kind of haphazard affair, and I've tried to do things about it. I forget vast amounts of stuff, simply because I haven't got the wit to turn a 15-quid tape recorder on. I actually went and got a little dictaphone at one point and put some stuff on it, and it warbled back some stuff to me that once, and I was so disgusted that I never used it again. Put it in a drawer. I've tried all sorts of things. I've tried a little drum machine on a coffee table, and little tape machines and things, and microphones, and everything just falls apart. So my best way really is just to sit with an acoustic. I don't go home and play my own records and cry. I probably would do if I did. The moon is hanging I read something in the paper today complimenting Tina Turner on the, she's talking about her way of dealing with the pain of a millennium when she sings Private Dancer. And I like to read that because I wrote Private Dancer, so I like the anonymity of that. In as far as I write, then I'm going to go on writing them. But in fact, the writing has more dignity to it than the performing end of it. I enjoy success very much, but fame is to me is more the price you pay for success. That fame and success are two completely different things. The success is great, and you can buy a recording machine and you can buy a motorcycle that you always wanted, but fame to me has no benefits that I can see, that I've ever been able to see. For a writer, you build your thing up around observing the world. And fame, it came as a bit of a shock to me. The world starts looking at you.
It's from you. You give me a heart attack.
I remember being upset about a girl once, and my dad saying to me, he said, you're just like me. He said, always smitten. He said, there'll come a time when you'll laugh about it. And in a way, you do. I mean, you can distance yourself from it in a way. But even at the time I was doing it, I was writing it, I remember smiling at his predicament, really. And he makes himself, in a sense, he makes himself ridiculous. But that's part of living. I mean, he feels it. He feels it really strongly.
Both dirty, both mean, and the dream's just the same. Dream your dream for you, so now your dream is real. How can you look at me as if I'm just another one of your deals? When you can fall for chains of silver, you can fall for chains of gold, you can fall for pretty strange.
We, of course, we don't have a prayer before we go on. We just have a drink. Learning to play in time is something that's a big subject, as a matter of fact. It's like being an experienced driver, I suppose, and reading your instruments while you're flying around a track. When you begin, you're so busy just keeping the car balanced that you haven't really got the time to say what exactly all the instruments were doing at any given point. But the old hands can do that because they have more time for it. And I think the same thing happens to playing on stage. You monitoring alone, which is the sound which comes through your own boxes, which is a mix of the band. You can hear how people are playing and whether people are slightly ahead or behind, what's being pulled and stretched and pushed, what feels good and what doesn't. And that's just time spent doing it. It's not a talent. I mean, learning to play in time was only something that I learned from doing a lot of recording and recording with other people, recording with people who do it all day. One thing that I've started to do much more, and I did with the last album, with every Street album, was for everybody to play together. So that the sounds are leaking into each other. Now, engineers don't like that, but modern recording is really based on a much more isolated thing, so that they can then deal with the sounds by themselves. All my favorite records really were done in rooms with everybody standing about and playing together. Something happens to the air when you're all playing together. When you're recording in a studio for a living, you make all your mistakes in public in a way because the records come out. And you only have to listen to studio things that you might have liked at the time and then compare it with a live thing. And the size is different, the feel is different. It's just you, your instrument, and the song. You might make mistakes, but it's like Chet Atkins I was doing an interview with Chet, with a journalist in America, and I was talking about how much I enjoyed recording rough, in a way, everybody just playing together. And he sort of chimed in with, yeah, he said, you might make mistakes on a record, but after a while, those mistakes start to sound right. Well, a band will respond to an audience. There's no question about that. When you actually get onto the stage, depending on the way that the crowd is, you look at each other and you know it's going to be a good one. But some people might turn around and like a more quiet night. They've enjoyed it more. It's strange. That whole thing is strange. I mean, different countries are. England and Australia and parts of America are much more laid back. Other crowds are absolutely manic and with points where they're louder than the band, and then at points where you can hear a pin drop.
Those expenses. Confidentially, please. It's in the diary. This is my investigation. It's not a public inquiry.
Where something like private investigations comes from, God only knows. It's not really my thing, but there it is.
Checking out the reports.
That was really more of an experiment than what I'd call. I mean, I'd rather have written something like "You Are My Sunshine." I mean, I think that's better.
Mind if I read? I can't get used to it.
It's fun to play. I mean, you do, yeah. It's fun to play it at the end when it goes. There's all this big crashing chords, and everybody goes. was at university in Leeds, I used to go every week to watch bands playing, some of the most memorable nights that I can remember were there. I saw Muddy Waters there. And so the place gets a significance for you, so that when it's your turn to play there, you can almost look up to the balcony where you used to stand and see yourself. A bit worried about being blown up on stage by a lightning bolt or a 100 gallons of water coming off the roof. The crew is so good. Your life is in their hands, but we have cutouts in case of shorts, and you're not going to complete a circuit up there. You're covered to a certain extent. The crowds love it. They get absolutely drenched through to the point where it really doesn't matter anymore. And they just love it. It was a lesson to me actually a few years ago. Once we went on in Italy in a rainstorm, and I got to the side of the stage and my roadie said, all your effects are out, lights are out, this is out. He says, your radio's out. He said, I've just plugged you into a Marshall's, good luck. I said, fine. It's not necessarily the way that you thought it would always be, but you can run from the show with a robe on, dive headfirst into a cargo, roaring out with a police escort. When I was a lot younger, I thought it was getting right into something else, but in fact, what you're getting right back into is a bunch of married men getting back into a game of Scrabble. We did the best that we could on the night.